My name is Average Joe, and I'm a proud geek with expertise in movies, superheroes, and animation.
And my name is Pixel Patch. I'm a joyful geek with an expertise in gaming, both tabletop and video.
Our mission is to bring nerd culture to the masses.
And by sticking it all under the microscope.
Welcome to the Bat Jar Podcast.
Movies, TV, manga, comic books, or is that graphic novels, cartoons, websites, animation, Disney, Star Wars, Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon, and Digimon, and Mighty Morphin, Power Rangers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Nintendo, Cinematic Universes, Marvel, DC, Justice League, is Batman, Leagues with Superman, Flash, Wonder Woman, Avengers, Iron Man, Captain Marvel, Loki, Spider-Man, and Hulk and Logan, X-Men, Battlers, Allen, Galaxy Guardians, Star Trek, Trick Trek, Card, and Janeway, Nerds and Geeks come gather around, join them in the Big Bad Jar, Average Joe and Pixel Patch, they peek under the microscope.
Hello there, and welcome to the Bat Jar Podcast, where we put nerd culture under the microscope.
And this time we shrunk it, and we shrunk it, and we shrunk all of it, and it fits.
Did we use PIM particles for that?
We used PIM particles. It was some pretty good stuff. We used all of it, though, so.
Well, whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
Absolutely. I just got back from our good friend Cackles. His wedding happened this weekend.
Oh, very nice.
The same Cackles who you hear every time, who you would have just heard because he does the theme song for our show.
Happy wedding day, Cackles. I was going to say happy birthday, but, you know.
I mean, it's like the birthday of his marriage.
Yeah, leading to, hopefully, birthdays within his marriage. So there we go.
Yeah. Anniversaries.
Yeah, those things.
It was a quite lovely occasion. Lots of nieces and nephews. It kind of reminded me of the movie because... Well, I can't say why it reminded me of the movie. There were two things that happened during the wedding ceremony that reminded me of the movie we're talking about today. But there's spoilers, and we're not talking about spoilers yet. So.
Yeah, and I just came back from a wedding ceremony of cinematography in which that which is holistically leading towards a final end of a thing is completed because the beginning of your life, you have a vocation that leads either towards ordination or marriage. And so, you know, if you start a cinematography business with the idea of making a story and the story completes itself, in a way, it has completed its vocation.
So as we mentioned last week, we're talking about Avengers Endgame today.
Woo! And it is a big talk.
Yeah.
There's some big talk.
And to do as much, to give our listeners who haven't had the chance to see the movie as much content as possible
before we enter the spoilerverse. So don't worry, this is still spoiler free.
Yeah, we're gonna do our mail first. So we're gonna mix up a bit. We're gonna go into the Bat Jar and look at our mail. So
clink a clink clink. All right, let's pull that out.
So we have another message from our friend Paul Rouleau here.
Paul Rouleau. All right, so the bottom one here. Yeah. All right. Hey, Average Joe and Pixel Patch. I'm just wondering, does Batman die in Avengers Endgame? If he does, what does this mean for his romance with Hermione Granger? Okay, star-studded lovers, all the way. When they first introduced Hermione Granger to the Bat MCU verse, which is when Batman used all of his money as Bruce Wayne to buy Marvel's universe within his own universe, I was a big fan. I was a really big fan.
When you say star-studded, do you mean star-crossed?
Star-crossed, of course. A star-studded is what his new Batsuit looks like in that universe.
Right. Well, I'm going to assume he's talking about Michael Keaton, who played Batman.
Yep.
And also has a role in the MCU as Adrian Toomes / the Vulture.
Yep.
So to answer your question, does
the Vulture marry Hermione Granger?
Well, does the Vulture die?
Does the Vulture die? Ooh.
We don't see the Vulture. I guess that's a spoiler. Michael Keaton's the Vulture is not in Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
So he does not die, or we assume he hasn't died. And then as for his romance with Hermione Granger... Batman and Harry Potter are both Warner Brothers properties, so they could
have a crossover. And he could be turned into a real vulture that they actually add metal parts to, and then boom, he could transform from a man to a vulture.
Where would you add metal on a vulture?
Oh, just clip it onto the wings.
Okay, yeah. But let's imagine if Batman could somehow enter the world of Harry Potter. Would Hermione be the one he romances?
He is extremely intelligent. So he would go for the smart one.
Yeah, but if you think of his girlfriends in the comics, it's people like Catwoman.
Oh yeah,
who's the most Catwoman-y of the Harry Potter characters?
Oh gosh.
I mean, not Professor McGonagall because she's literally a cat woman.
Yeah, okay, I was gonna you cut me off of the past, man. I can't do anything with that now.
Well, maybe a young McGonagall. I feel like
I don't know, probably some of the famous wizards, like the famous young wizards from the Triwizard Cup or something. He would go. It would be like an unknown. He wouldn't go with like the classics. He'd be one of those unknowns.
Now, the few times Batman in the comics has had to engage with magic, he's been kind of disbelieving of it.
So,
and they would think of him as like just this muggle. So it would be a truly star-crossed romance if Batman actually fell in love with a Harry Potter
that would be
world wizard.
Very intense. Then he'd use his money to just turn magic into some of his gadgets. Magic gadgets. Magic muggle gadgets.
So I hope that answers your question, Paul. We also have an email from our good friend of the show, TC Laugh.
Alrighty. Let's take a look here. So, hey guys, I just wanted to say thank you for being such a good friend that you would drive Dr. What to the hospital because he said my water broke 5 minutes before Avengers. They pulled that on you? Oh my goodness. 5 minutes before Avengers was going to start, even though he was joking. That was so sweet. You're amazing. All right. Yeah. Average Joe, you have, without knowing it, just set yourself up as a true superhero. So 5 minutes before the movie started, apparently you...
Yeah, so this message requires some context. So the people I saw the movie with have all been on the podcast before. I saw it with Anonymous, who hasn't been on the show in a while, but he has been on many episodes.
Anonymous, the French underground hacking group?
No,
you saw it with all of them?
The other Anonymous.
The Anonymous, the ones
yes.
that less people know about and therefore more successful. Got it.
One Shot, who's been on the show many times.
Yeah.
And Dr. What.
Okay.
So Dr. What is married to TC Laugh in real life. We've talked about this before, and she's currently pregnant.
Whoa, spoiler.
Well.
We said this was spoiler free.
Yes. Well, spoilers for Dr. What and TC Laugh's marriage, but they have a baby due next month.
Woo!
So
party it up.
We
watch Infinity War with them.
Yeah, well, Endgame.
Yeah,
but
I mean, watch Infinity War first because the baby hasn't.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Okay, I'm sorry.
It's all good.
But anyway, just to make things easier, we drove together. So I picked Dr. What up from his place or their place, and yeah, we get to the theater, and literally like 5 minutes before the movies, as the trailers are playing, he leans over to me and says, "Joe, Average Joe, I just got a text from TC Laugh, and her water just broke. I have to go now." Like, and he basically, because I'd driven him, there was kind of like the expectation that I was going to bring him back, and I had a moment of like realization where it's like, this is really unfortunate, but there's nothing I can do. But I can't say tough luck, buddy. Go get a taxi or something.
You could taxi with your wife to the hospital.
And so just as I was in a theater that had reclining seats. So just as I'm starting to push up on my reclining seat, he finally lets me in on the joke.
Goodness gracious me! Now, did you enjoy Endgame more because of that?
Kind of, yeah, because there's like this, like, oh, okay, like I actually don't have to miss out on the movie.
Nice, all right.
And what made me not angry was how he received my reaction. He was actually very touched that I would not see the movie.
I would be too,
because I just finished giving the three of them like a speech about how I was happy to be experiencing this with them and all this stuff. So he knew how much the movie meant to me. So it was it meant a lot to him, I guess, that I was willing to hypothetically do something that didn't actually end up happening.
That's kind of neat. The surround sound was way better in this theater than previous theaters that I've been to, so I really enjoyed like all the bits and pieces and the sounds that the movie had to offer, more so than usual. It made it a really good experience for me. Yeah, like non-spoiler review, it was a great movie. I think everyone who has even somewhat enjoyed Marvel movies and even hasn't enjoyed some Marvel movies, this is a good story with like some nice solid suspense and points and plots that I think are just huge crowd pleasers.
So we did get 2 pieces of mail, so you know what that means.
Double mail time!
There you go. So for those who don't know, when we get mail so rarely that it's actually a big deal when we have 2 pieces of mail.
Yeah, if you guys are forcing me to do this every week, I'm going to lose my lungs.
Yeah, so please, Pixel Patch, tell the people how they can get a hold of us.
So you can actually just send us a direct message at batjarpodcast@gmail.com. So it's batjarpodcast@gmail. You can also send us a message through like any of our social media. Like Twitter's probably the easiest at
the Bat Cookie Jar.
Yep. And yeah, like anywhere that you see us online, you can send us a message through Facebook or anything. Like we'll all count it as mail. You can also mail our direct address at
No.
Oh, no. Cut the mic.
We don't have one of those.
We don't exist.
But certainly you can send us messages, emails, Facebook messages, We want to hear from you. We'd love to hear your thoughts on what we're talking about, or if you want to know more about us, we'd happy to hear that.
Oh,
as well.
yeah. I'm happy to give out all that information. Within reason. My social security will stay close to my chest.
Absolutely. So there you go. That's the mail for this week. So we're going to do as much as we can to talk about Avengers Endgame without spoilers for the movie.
And then once we go there, we'll yawn, 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 and talk.
So I saw the movie Thursday night at 10:10, and you just saw it this afternoon.
At 2:30, yeah.
So I've had a few days now to kind of process.
Yeah, I'm still reeling from the experience, and that's a pretty accurate summation of what you're going to experience in the movie.
Yeah, and to be fair, by the gestation point where you're at, where I had seen the movie, I was very kind of like all over the place as well. And part of the challenge for me is I drove down for Cackle's wedding many hours from where we live, and the couple I went with hadn't seen the movie yet. So
oh my goodness! So you just had to.
We're in the car for like 6 hours. They had bought tickets in the place we were going to go for Friday night. So we had a 6-hour car ride where we had this like elephant in the room where it's like I had seen the movie, and I couldn't talk about it because they wanted to see it.
Oh my goodness!
And then finally they saw it Friday night, and we were able to talk about it on the way back.
Nice.
But this whole phenomenon of the don't spoil the end game or Thanos demands your silence, I think that is an interesting thing we can talk about without even really talk about the movie. These Marvel movies, particularly Infinity War and now Endgame, have created this kind of event experience where
like that I haven't run into with a lot of different movies, like even with like let's say like Star Wars or Ready Player One, or like a lot of movies that are being adapted, of course, don't count. Like there's not this whole idea of like don't spoil it. There's the unassumed rule, like don't be a jerk, don't spoil things, but mostly people are either on or off. But I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe puts in so much care and heart into the surprises and the anticipation that you want to experience it as soon as possible to kind of make sure that, one, you can share with other people this crazy experience, and two, don't spoil it. It's so different.
It's kind of an unwritten rule of, like you said, of movie going. It's like you don't spoil it so that other people can experience it. And we've talked about this before, like just the way the films are marketed now, they kind of show you way too much of special moments or story beats or even good jokes that it's very hard to walk out of a movie and feel surprised now.
Yeah.
So, I stress this mostly with Infinity War and Endgame. Other Marvel movies have like hidden things from you in the trailers, but these ones really had the campaign with like the directors putting out their letter and the actors like doing promos like saying, "Don't spoil the movie."
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think if like one of the YouTubers I follow, her name is Grace Randolph. She does a channel called Beyond the Trailer, and her big takeaway, she said, if other studios want to copy anything from Marvel, it's copy this event experience kind of feel.
Yeah.
This idea of creating a culture around your movie wherein it's important to actually go and see it to the point where you can't spoil it for other people.
Yeah. So it's just like, it not only is like, oh, I'll see it either in the theaters or when it comes out on home video, I don't really care. It's just like, no, you should go see it in theaters so you have as many people to share with as possible, but at the same time, don't tell anyone. Like, it's one of those weird things. It's like, tell everyone about the movie, but don't tell them the contents of the movie.
Like, when I first arrived at my theater to see the movie, I was actually stressed out that I would, because I was going to a later show. So
right.
What my fear was is that I'd encounter people leaving the theater who would be then talking about the movie,
right,
and I'd get spoiled.
I was like reading things and I saw one word. It panicked and like deleted the post. I was like, I don't know what that was. I don't know if it was a spoiler. So I just like deleted the post and went to go see the movie. So like I almost got partially spoiled.
It made it even worse because as soon as I got there, I needed to go to the bathroom, and just at this particular theater, the bathrooms are right down by a set of escalators coming down from all the screening rooms,
and where people are coming back from the movie right before. Oy.
And then of course, where do a lot of people go after the movie? They go to the bathroom. So there I am in the bathroom doing my business, and I'm like, please do not say anything that will spoil the movie.
Were you screaming while using the urinal?
No, I was
no spoilers.
I was just like, Dr. What also used the bathroom. He started singing a song out loud so that he wouldn't be hearing anything other people were saying.
That's really funny.
I don't think I've ever been that stressed just trying to get into it's like I just want to get to my seat. It's like if I get into my seat in my screening room, I'm going to be with people who haven't seen the movie yet, and I'll be safe there.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting and unique that this movie's created that culture of I want to experience it for the first time in my seat in the theater without any external forces impacting me.
I know a friend of mine who hasn't even watched the trailers. That's how much they want to experience the movie.
Wow.
Which is kind of interesting.
I mean, Professor F's right here in the background. He's slowly putting in, what do you call those things you put in your ears? Earplugs.
There you go.
Because he doesn't want to get any spoilers. He understands the importance of not getting spoiled for the movie.
Do you have spare earplugs that I could grab? All right.
What does he need?
I'm a light sleeper, and I'm planning on sleeping in a lot tomorrow after several days of waking up to people's alarms at like 2 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock at night. And
cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, and what this also does, this whole hashtag Don't Spoil the Endgame campaign, it creates a lot of buzz for the movie on social media.
Oh, yeah, because then you're just like, don't spoil it, don't spoil it. And it's something that people already want for every other movie, so they're just like, yeah, don't spoil stuff. Like, be the person. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. I will sleep soundly tonight.
Apparently, the week before Endgame came out, someone actually leaked like 4 minutes of footage online, and like everyone was unilaterally like, "We don't want to see this. Don't do this. Put it away."
Yeah.
And I don't think that kind of thing happens really anymore.
No, like if people leaked footage of like the second Lord of the Rings movie, I'd be all over that. I would try to find a download for it as much as I could. But yeah, no, it's such a different experience because you like Lord of the Rings, you already kind of know what's going to happen. But with Endgame, like, yeah, you got some comic book ideas, but there's no precedent for it.
There's no rule says they don't directly adapt the comics. They just don't do it. So it really, people say to me, oh, like, what happens in the comics? I say, I could tell you, but ultimately for the movies, it doesn't really matter because they might draw inspiration from this, but it might not actually matter.
There was some fun inspiration in that movie.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
So we talked about this last week, but Infinity War, geez, I'm already thinking of it that way.
There is one spoiler that I like online. It's not a real spoiler. There's a style of post called Spoilers Without Context, and it's 9 images or 4 images, and they're just random. It's like someone had a picture of Minecraft, and I didn't understand it till I saw the movie. And it's just all these like random images that make sense once you've seen the movie. But before you see the movie, it's just these random, like, seemingly thrown together images that don't help. But I would suggest keeping your eyes open for those.
So when the movie was originally announced, it was Infinity War Part 2.
Right.
And we were all excited because it meant, okay, we're going to get Part 1 in 2018 and then Part 2 in 2019. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
And then not too long after that, they announced the movies were still coming out in those times, but they were going to be not Part 1 and Part 2 anymore.
And so you expect the first movie to just wrap itself up and then movie 2 to have some other stuff. But
as we know from the end of Infinity War, it left on this massive cliffhanger that...
spoiler, close your ears for 10 seconds. Thanos snaps his fingers, and then half the population of the universe gets erased. Okay, right. You can take your earplugs out.
Yeah, I mean, let's assume people have seen Infinity War at this point.
If you haven't seen Infinity War, like, oi.
Yeah.
You could leave now, go catch up, please.
Yeah, and this is the final installment, movie 22 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's the final installment of what they're calling the Infinity Saga, which is basically the storyline that has been built up around the Infinity Stones.
Right.
I make the case that really... to say that every movie going back to the first Iron Man is part of this Infinity Saga is a little bit
It's
too
a bit
much.
much. Like, it seems like, once... about 7 movies in is where it really... like, of course, Captain America had the Tesseract and stuff, but...
I would say it starts with the Avengers, because in that one you have all the characters from the previous films kind of coalescing, and that ends with the tease of Thanos.
Yeah.
So really,
whose design looks way different the first time you see him. Like,
yeah, of course, because at that point they hadn't really cast him or anything. They didn't, like, back then, 7 years ago, they didn't know where this was going to go.
Also, his casting was perfect. Like, Thanos is frightening to behold and to combat, like,
despite being a purple man with a
purple Homer Simpson.
With a funny looking chin.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, and the thing I credit the MCU with is that it's gotten me to go to the movies and care about characters that I've known about for a long time from reading comics, but never cared about. I would have never seen an Ant-Man movie or a Doctor Strange movie.
Doctor Strange was the one that, like, it made me care about him the most. Like, from going from not caring to caring, I think I decently cared about Iron Man, decently cared about Captain Marvel, but, like, did not care at all about Doctor Strange, and then he was just, like, one of my favorite Avengers now.
Well, even Thor, Captain Marvel, like, these are all characters that I knew existed, but I would have never given any interest to watching a movie about these characters, but because they've done all this work to make it this shared universe, all of a sudden I care, because, like, if this impacts the stories I do like, then I have to go see it. And that's obviously worked out very well for them financially over the years, and Infinity War and Endgame really capitalized on all that world building by essentially having all of the characters come into one space.
Yeah, and so much so, like, the amount they have to pay all of those actors to be, like, I was just looking at some of the shots, and I was just like, they must have put so much money into this because there's so many characters here and there's so much money being paid to them. Wow. Like, oh my goodness.
So with all that being said, Avengers Endgame is sort of predicated on you having seen other movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You know, this is like movie 22.
You can go into it just watching Infinity War and then watching that, but you're missing out on a ton. You can go into it comfortably having watched 5 out of the 22 previous movies, the ones that primarily deal with the Infinity Stones and the lead up, especially like Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff. But yeah, like...
Yeah, so if you happen to be here and you have never watched any MCU movies, I would encourage you to go back and listen to our episode on Infinity War Homework, Avengers Infinity War, and then our episode last week on...
And honestly, they're superhero movies. They're fun. You can put them on the background and just grab bits and pieces here and there and just enjoy it as it is. Like, don't try to enjoy it as this masterwork of, like, cinematography and art. Like, there's some good movies, there's some bad movies, but it's just a nice, lighthearted superhero movie, kind of just... Yeah, take it in stride.
I don't know what movie you saw. This was not lighthearted.
What? Yeah, no. I meant the previous movies.
Sorry,
yeah,
you got me worried there for a second.
Yeah, just watch Endgame while you're eating popcorn and doing 3 other things. Okay. I just made Average Joe cringe a little bit in his heart.
Anyway, let's talk about critics and audiences. So what do you think the critics are saying? Like the tomato meter?
There were a few modern day ideology inputs that I think would make the critters really happy. They're critters now. They're just critters that crawl all over my movies and ruin them. I think they're going to score high, probably like the 90%, because there was just some modern ideology that I did not agree with in some of the shooting and stuff, but I'm pretty sure would make modern people really happy.
So. Yeah, so Infinity War got 85% when all was said and done from the critics.
Oh, okay.
So
nice.
Where do you think Endgame?
Higher. It's got to be higher. It's so well done. Like...
Yeah, so it currently, with 388 critic reviews counted, it's sitting at 96%.
Holy crap. Yeah. No, it's a good movie. And more than Infinity War, it has a very strong story following it. Like, it's not just a battle, it's a really good story.
Now, where do you think the audiences sit with this? Infinity War got 91%.
I would say probably 98. Like, there was a few things, like some of the ideas that were brought forth in the movie I could see making people a little bit upset. But, like, no, it's just such a good movie. I'm going to say 98 or 93.
98 or 93. Well, it's a 92 right now.
92? Oh, okay.
So pretty close to your second guess.
Yeah, I would say I'm surprised it's not 93 because it is better than Infinity War. Like, it just objectively is.
Well, the cinema score people would agree with that comment because it got an A+.
Okay, wow.
Which really surprised me because it's a very eventful film, and there's a lot that happens to stir your emotions. So immediately after seeing the movie, I was kind of in like the state of shock almost. Like,
did you cry at any points in the movie?
Pretty darn close, and I feel like when I see it second and third time, I will definitely cry.
There's definitely like one moment where I was tearing up, and one moment where I was like, I cried for like about 5 seconds. And I was like, okay, all right, I can do this. Got to concentrate.
I'm surprised that people gave it an A+ because like they just would have been like, if they were like me, they would have been like a state of shock and not knowing how to feel.
Right.
But they did. That's the average score, and that's what the highest score cinema score can give to a movie. So
no, it's very, very well done.
Having said that, have you heard the news about its box office?
No. Oh my gosh, I am so excited to hear this. All right.
When Infinity War came out last year, it broke records for domestic opening weekend,
Right.
and worldwide opening weekend. So,
Okay, I'm assuming those records were broken again.
So it was 257 last year,
million
domestic, and 644 worldwide.
Okay.
So with that in mind, where do you think
300 and 700.
Okay, so let me just make sure I get this right. Domestically, it's currently estimated of having raised $350 million.
Oh my goodness.
So the movie last year set a record, and now this one trumps it by almost $100 million.
Holy cow. Yeah, no, like it had the highest pre-sales in history, so much so that it shut down the pre-sale website for like 2 days straight.
And
like,
worldwide, $1.2 billion.
What the junk?
So including the 350 from North America,
It's 1.3 billion.
at $1.2 billion right now. So that means after one weekend, it is already globally the highest grossing film of the entire year.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Like,
there are 20 different box office records that Endgame broke over the weekend.
yeah. Like, I knew people wanted to go see it, but that's, oh my gosh.
Largest Thursday preview, largest Friday opening, largest Saturday, largest Sunday, fastest to 100, 150, 200, 250, 300, 350 million. It had the widest release ever. Like, it opened in like over 4,660 theaters.
Okay.
So no movies ever opened in that many theaters. When I saw it, okay, there were the theater I went to has 12 screening rooms.
Right.
5 of them were dedicated to showing Endgame.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. No. Yeah. Like, that just makes sense.
I think part of what's helped Endgame make this much money is that, it made however much it made last year.
Yeah.
And that was a record-breaking audience. But because of the way Infinity War ends, basically everybody who saw the movie successively in the weeks following, all those people were bought in to see it sooner.
Right, because like that's the cliffhanger, and you want that answer, and you don't want someone else telling you what happens. Like, it's a book. You want to read it to find out what happens for yourself.
So I suspect that this movie will earn most of its money on the front end because basically everybody who saw the last one will see it sooner.
Yeah.
Like, that's partially why this movie's grossed more right out of the gate, because all these people who saw the movie last year want to see it sooner.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's that emotional investment to get the answer as soon as possible.
And to be frank, like, the movie is longer. It's just over 3 hours long, and it isn't as much of a fun popcorn movie as Infinity War was.
Yeah, no, this is definitely a heavy and like at some points very dark, but not like DC dark. Just like dealing with some tough emotions and really doing a good job, unlike most Marvel movies. Like, most Marvel movies don't get my heart going, but this one was just like a lot of heart put into it, a lot of like care, and with some characters that you don't expect to have that connection with, they manage it through like family and through like it's
What's
great.
also amazing, to Disney and Marvel's credit, is that the number 2 movie of the weekend is Captain Marvel.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's been out for like 8 weeks now, and it, like, last weekend it finished in like 5th place, right? Because it's been out for so long.
Right.
But among all the other movies that have been released since then, including Shazam, Captain Marvel actually made more money this weekend than it did last weekend. So
Because
there was,
people are wanting to see Endgame,
and
so
they
they're
probably
going.
couldn't get in, so they saw Captain Marvel instead.
Oh my gosh.
So this is unprecedented in terms of just money made, but also just the level of interest from people.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be interesting to see what happens in the coming weeks. As
Because that's not just going to spawn more movies. Like, because of Endgame, we're going to see media and entertainment of all different kinds, more so than ever before, be offered. Like, I even think Fortnite is doing an Endgame theme right now. Like, that's huge partnership. Like, everything. There's
you,
going to
you can use Captain America's shield and Thor's hammer.
Yep, yeah.
in the game.
Iron Man's suit, like it's stuff like all these things are just overlapping on each other to add to the hype. But I think it's going to spawn. I don't know what it is, but in the next year, I think Marvel is going to create something and offer something in terms of entertainment other than their movies. And I'm not quite
Well,
sure.
there's
what it
also
is
all
yet.
the Disney Plus shows.
Yeah. There you go. That might have been the genesis of it. Yeah.
So there you go. This movie's done incredibly well, and we're going to start talking about the movie, but we're going to try and do it without spoilers. So
yeah, we will tell you when we go into the spoilerverse.
So here we go, Pixel Patch, your challenge to try and talk about the story of Avengers Endgame without any spoilers.
So, as many people expect,
we found something. A chance, maybe.
Thanos used the stones again. So let's get them. Use them to bring everyone back.
Just like that.
Yeah, just like that.
On April 26th,
We have a chance to take it all back. It's not about how much we lost. It's about how much we have left.
who hasn't been to space? You better not throw up on my ship. Avengers Endgame.
it's the idea of getting those Infinity Stones to get everyone back. I think that's what everyone was expecting. There's some unexpected means. I'm not going to go into them. It's the job of trying to get the all the Infinity Stones back and the true final fight against Thanos. And once again, it's bringing together all those that were lost and how those losses really affected everyone. And there's been some really tough changes that some Avengers are having a really hard time dealing with. And you're seeing them in places and in emotions that you're not used to seeing your powerful superheroes in. And it's them dealing with that as they do that final go to fix everything that came before. And it's a wild ride. It solves a lot of the cliffhangers and a lot of the bits and pieces that you've been wondering about. And I think it is one of the most satisfying ends to a lengthy saga that I've experienced in the last 20 years of film.
Something that I've experienced when watching anime is that when I get to the final episode and it ends, I'm almost sad. Even if it was a good show, I still have this sadness. It's oh, it's over. There's no more of this. And that's how I felt at the end of Endgame. Is this reality set, and it's oh, the story's done. This thing.
There's going to be more Marvel movies, but I don't feel the draw to see those as much as. I still want to see all those whatever future movies happen, but just the fact that this story that I've invested so much time in is now concluded. There was almost a bit of sadness there. And I was this is so. It's
weird.
like getting to the end of a really good book.
Yes, exactly.
And I think I used to read Redwall, and when I got to the end of Mossflower, there was one character that never came back again after that book, and I was I really wish there was another book of that character. Not that I want Marvel ever to go back to the Infinity Saga. It's it's excellent as it is.
We made a bunch of speculations last week as to guessing as to who was going to survive and how the story was going to play out. We guessed a couple things right.
Yep.
And that's
but they had a lot of surprises for us.
Yeah, and there were things we got totally wrong. So
yeah.
Which makes me happy. It's okay, good. I'm kind of smart because I've guessed some things, but I was totally wrong about other things. And there's that satisfaction of being right, but also the satisfaction of being surprised.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't just stick to, well, obviously they're going to do this and they're going to fix everything. It's not this big head-on fight again like Infinity War. It definitely takes a more circuitous route than you think it's going to take.
Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking because I was expecting just a second Infinity War. I was expecting another movie that was just kind of start, go, introduce
we
characters,
solve
fight.
this. Yeah.
And it was just, and that's...
It was so different and yet so very much meshing with it.
Well, Infinity War for me was just basically the ultimate popcorn movie in the sense that, there are character moments in it, but it
felt like Civil War.
Yeah, it moves along very quickly, and there's just lots of fun. There's lots of genuinely hilarious moments mixed in with the drama, and there's just one inventive, creative action scene after another. And I guess I was expecting just another one of those, but in all truth, and this is not a spoiler, Endgame is a very different movie than Infinity War.
If we can compare them, Civil War and Infinity War are very similar. They have these very big action sequences, lots of creative bits and pieces like that, and Age of Ultron. We've seen these bigger movies, and they're very, very similar to one another. Endgame is different. It is definitely different, and it's far more emotional and far less action. No, it's really good action, but the emotion somehow rings through it louder.
I would almost go as far as say it's a drama first.
Yeah.
Before an action movie.
I would agree with that, 100%.
Because there is so much emphasis put on character and what the characters are going through.
And you actually finally get enough time to slow down a little bit in order to really feel those hits with those characters.
There's actual moments of silence in the film.
What?
Yeah, exactly. It almost made me uncomfortable. It's nothing's happening. What's going on? And I guess this is a bit of my I'm just so accustomed to movies that are constantly providing stimuli.
Let's go.
But it really lets you sit with what the characters are experiencing, which, if you saw Infinity War, half the universe died. So of course that there's going to be time dedicated to the characters, and I was happy that happened, that we really got to sit in that experience that they had.
Yeah, those moments of quiet and those moments of almost terror at what occurred. Obviously the world is sitting in the reaction of the snap, and it's just there's some just terrifying moments, and you're just you feel as uncomfortable as the characters. I think the moment where it's just and it's what happened, and there's just these really awkward, quiet moments where everything is just terrifying, and you're as bewildered as the characters are, and you really feel that. I don't know if there's a lot of movies that make Bird Box, I think, made me feel that way, but this isn't a horror movie yet still managed it.
This film has it's 3 hours long, and I would go as far as to say each hour kind of is almost it's you can clearly tell first act, second act, third act.
Yep.
And that it doesn't make it feel jarring. It does feel it all, because you can't have.
It doesn't feel like a 3-hour movie.
No,
and it feels like a 2-hour movie, and
And you couldn't cut any of these parts out. They all play essential. It's not here's 3 little 1-hour movies they edited together. It's no, this is all one story, and that just kind of has 3 kind of main parts.
Yeah, I can see myself maybe cutting 10 minutes of the movie, if that, and that would be painful because it's so important.
There's a YouTube channel I follow called Screen Crush.
Okay.
And they put it together an Easter egg video that's 25 minutes long.
Yowza.
And they claim to find 206 Easter eggs in the film.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot.
And frankly, I'm going to have to go see the movie again to look for some of them. I didn't even watch the video because I'm okay, well, I know I was going to see the movie again anyway.
Can you forward me that video? I'd love to watch it.
Yeah, I'll send you a link later.
Sweet.
But it just goes to show how much effort and love was put into making the film.
Because it's just chock full of everything that makes the Marvel Cinematic Universe great. It's just these heroes and their struggles, and wow, I am blown away.
Yeah, there were many surprises, and the Easter eggs certainly come into some of the surprises, but there's other things that happen, character revelations, deaths, not deaths, musical cues, just character moments that you don't see coming, and it really, for me, there were some audible gasps and in the theater.
We're gonna talk about it later, but I know who they cut out of the trailer. You know how there was a weird person missing? I finally know who that is, and why. But we'll go into that later.
Yeah, it's another case of Marvel really editing their trailers, and I don't know how they're doing this. I don't know how the CGI works, but there's literally entire parts of scenes that were changed from the trailer to the actual film.
Yeah, and I have to go rewatch those trailers now because now I know what's missing.
Yeah, you're curious.
Yeah,
I like it. So, and this is not a spoiler to say there is no post-credit scene. I sat through the whole movie just in the off chance the things I read were lying.
There's a 1-second Easter egg.
Yeah.
That's it. Do you mind if I say it?
No, I think it's fine to say.
Okay, block your ears if you're lit on here. It's the sound of Iron Man hammering away, because it started with Iron Man as the first movie in the series, and now that story is complete, and it's just Iron Man hammering away.
Yeah.
But it's just the audio. You wouldn't. There's no scene. It's just the audio plays as the Marvel
logo comes up.
So and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with no end credit scene. It was heartfelt. It's just you've experienced this. We're going to let you sit down.
Yeah, and all I have to say, if you need to get up, I would say, if you need to leave, I would say wait until the title of the movie comes up.
Yeah.
Some of the credits they do is very inventive and special.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's pretty much everything we can say without talking about the content of the story.
All right, let's enter the
Spoilerverse.
Spoilerverse.
So let's try and attack this chronologically here. So
Okay, yeah.
The very first scene of the movie.
Absolutely amazing. Whoa. Very first scene of the movie. With
Hawkeye. And his family.
It was Hawkeye? It was Hawkeye. Okay, yeah. So Hawkeye's hanging out with his family. He turns around for a second, turns back around, and literally all 3 of them have been snapped. And they're playing ball. They're asking well, how do you want your hot dogs? And he's teaching his daughter archery. And then he turns around to pick some stuff up, and they're gone. And everything quiets down. There's no music at this point. And he's just like, you can see the panic. And at first he's like smirking. He's like, guys, where'd you go? And then there's panic. And then there's panic. And it's just growing and growing. And it wasn't frightening for me until the Marvel logo came up and there wasn't Marvel music playing.
Yeah. We all kind of speculated that that's what was going to happen, is that his whole family was going to get snapped away and that he was going to go on his little, Ronin adventure, but the way it was presented, I was like, wow.
Like, imagine everyone on the planet experiencing this at once. Like, and they don't know. Like, they don't know Thanos did it. They don't know Thanos. But yeah, when the Marvel logo came up and just started playing different music or like sadder music, like I was already just really upset. I was like, wow.
Most of the footage they gave us in the trailers is from that first
5-10 minutes.
10 minutes in the movie.
Yeah, like, and when you mentioned that last week, I was like, really? I was like, but they have these spacesuits on. It's like, yeah, no, they like, well, except maybe the time travel stuff. They do.
Yeah, so like the red and white suits you see in the trailer, it suggested that they're supposed to be spacesuits, but actually they're used for time travel.
Yeah, which we'll go into in a little bit.
Yeah, so the first 10 minutes of the movie, you think that
they're gonna go fight Thanos and get the gauntlet back,
or get their butts kicked.
Yeah.
But no, you find out Thanos has destroyed the stones.
And they chop his head off.
And his arm.
Like, they just go and they kill Thanos. First 10 minutes of the movie. Like, boom.
And it's interesting. It's fun. It's funny because all the commentary after the movie came out last year was, why didn't you try chopping off his hand? Or why didn't Thor actually chop his head off? And then
so his comment is, Rocket goes, what did you do? And Thor just looks at him and goes, I went for the head. And it's just like, a little throwback to all of that. So you do chop his arm off, they do chop his head off. So there you go, guys.
And like, you think it's going to go so well because Captain Marvel's there and they're all ready and they're ready to fight. Yeah. And there's this really sad moment where like, Tony's there. And I couldn't understand why they were going to bring Tony back to Earth so fast.
Yeah.
But when you see him all kind of like sickly and he's like calling out Cap, he's like, this is all your fault because we weren't united, because you divided the Avengers.
Yeah.
This has happened. And it was like, oh.
And he's angry. Like, I was scared that he was going to be out the whole movie because he was sick. He was angry and there was nothing for him to do.
And when I like my jaw dropped when they killed Thanos, I was like, what now?
like, but the stones are gone. Like, aren't you even going to try and get information out of him? Like, nope. And so there we go. It ends 5 years later.
So that's something that I think myself and a lot of other
the 10-year time skip, Shonen Jump.
Yeah, well, like the 5, in this case, a 5-year skip. Like the biggest thing that led to me to believing that was going to happen was the casting of an older actress for Cassie Lang.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah. The haircut, however, was the other way around. She had her blonde haircut before the 5-year time skip, and after that, her hair had grown out.
Yes.
With a little bit of blonde at the bottom, so it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, so they cut ahead 5 years later, and you basically, so like we're talking about like basically the first third of the movie. They drop this bomb on you that like they can't reverse what happened.
The snap is done. No one is coming back, and you're just like, oh, like, okay.
And then it cuts very slowly. It shows 5 years later.
And it just hits you. Everything is grim. Like, the world just fell apart. Like, you think, oh, there's half the people. It's fine. It's like, yeah, there's half the people who could have been in charge, might have been doing stuff. Like, maybe after 2 years, maybe some semblance of order would have happened. But, like it's nothing. We can't even understand something like this happening. Like, people have not recovered. There's a small city around the Statue of Liberty. People are just clinging to literally anything familiar to try and not fall apart.
Yeah, they make a couple comments saying like, "Oh, I saw a pack of whales" or something. Like they do make some comments to suggest that like there are things that are better as a result of this happening. But certainly,
it's grim
in terms of the experience of any of the actual people.
You know what I'm thinking of now? Everyone in the first 20 minutes of the movie just looks shell shocked. Like,
basically, yeah.
Yeah, it's like perma shell shock. Like, what you see your heroes encounter, maybe like for 10 seconds after taking a big hit, imagine that for 10 minutes long. I think that's why it was so unnerving.
Yeah, and so people who I've seen talk about the movie on YouTube say that the movie, especially the first half, feels like a funeral.
Yeah.
Because it's this big, long moment of just kind of unrelenting sadness.
Yeah.
Because you're seeing how basically each of the Avengers is coping with the new reality in very different ways. I
And
think the only one who's actually adjusted well would be Tony.
Yeah, Tony's. I think Tony's story was the one that really brought me the biggest joy. Like, he started a family with Pepper Potts, and he has this beautiful daughter who he just loves. He's still Tony as a dad, and I think that's really funny. I don't think he would be as Tony as a father as they portrayed him to be, but his relationship with his daughter is so beautiful and so good, and you're just like, yeah, that's how moving on should be. But yeah, everyone else is like suffering and like.
Well, I mean, Hulk or Bruce.
Yeah. So we get Professor Hulk, which you called, right?
Yeah, and so did other people. So I'm not, but he kind of found a way to move on.
Yeah.
By
he combined his Hulk powers with his brain powers, and he is a Mark Ruffalo-looking Hulk,
which looked really cool.
Yeah, I actually really like the design. Yeah.
And you have Captain America, who's kind of like in the middle. It's like he hasn't quite full up given up all hope, but he's certainly not. And he's like, he's in a support group and everything. He's trying.
And yeah, oh man.
But then on the other hand, you have characters like Hawkeye, who basically have gone full on to the other side.
Yeah, Hawkeye loses it, goes full vigilante, and starts like murdering every criminal he can get his hands on. Like, it was intense. I didn't know if I wanted him back in the team after that. Like, I was kind of frightened of him.
Natasha, I mean, she's just looking for the next problem to solve. Like,
yeah, she buried herself in her work.
Yeah,
like literally, she looks disheveled. She looks as if she'll fall over at the slightest problem. Like, she does not look like her strong self anymore.
No, and she feels like she has no purpose because she kind of at that point she was living for the Avengers.
Yeah, like they have a group of 5 of them that are kind of watching over the world in different areas. So she's like talking with Rhodes, who's in like America, and she's talking with the Wakandans, who are like, hey, this stuff's going on over here, and like, but everyone, that scene was so tense. I wanted to leave. Like they're just barely scraping together, trying to hold the world together after everything that happened.
But also to say, like, she being Natasha wants to get involved with every little thing, and they're like, it was just an earthquake. There's nothing we can do about it. It's just an earthquake.
Like, oh yeah. They
underwater, like there's literally nothing to do.
It's like, how do we handle it? We handle it by not handling it. Like, that's just the case. So like, the whole thing was just absolutely incredible. Like, there was just so many
the biggest surprise was really for me was Thor. And it was played.
Oh, right. Okay, so do you want it?
Well, it's just like it was tragic. It was played for comedy, but it was also really tragic for me to see how Thor,
this powerful, this like he knows his purpose. Like, he's a Norse god. They don't lose their purpose. They just find something else to do.
Well, he feels so guilty for what happened that he completely like gives up. He's put on a ton of weight. He's like, his hair's grown out ridiculously.
Like,
he's got a big
he looks
beard.
like a surfer guy. He's this big flabby belly. Like, oh.
It was played it for laughs, and they call him the Big Lebowski, and that's funny and everything. But I was like, this is truly tragic. Somebody who was so like devoted to the service of others, and somebody who like did the best he could,
and just feels like he failed and can't.
And now he's a drunk.
Yeah, like Valkyrie. You're like, okay, she's a drunk, whatever. It was funny. Thor, it wasn't funny. Like it was funny, but it was just like heart-wrenching.
And I was really impressed with Ant-Man because Paul Rudd shows up, and like he's usually more comedic, but like the kind of like desperation in him to like try.
Yeah.
He's like that glimmer of hope he had, where he was like, there is a chance for this to like be resolved, and he kind of like, despite the fact that his daughter's still alive, the fact that he's lost hope and Hank and Janet.
Yeah.
He's like trying to do whatever he can to make that happen. I thought that was very interesting because typically Ant-Man's supposed to be the funny guy.
Yeah, and he still was. Like, it's funny because he didn't have that shell shock experience, and it was really nice seeing him encounter everyone and be like, "Hey, what's going on? What's happening?" And they're just like, "Dude, like, calm down. Like, this is the worst." Like,
well, and he kind of like he gets gradually more into that as he like spends more time outside of the quantum realm, realizing like what's happened to him, but also what's happened to the world.
Yeah.
It was very intense. And it's, the same person who said it's like a funeral, he compared it to the Return of the King. And opposite, he said like the Return of the King is like all guns blazing and then it just takes forever to end.
Yeah.
and it has like it's just one thing after another. And he said this is the opposite. Like
it takes a while to begin,
and then it just kind of takes off.
Yeah.
So as we suggested, and as other people theorized, is that they end up deciding they can use time travel
using the quantum realm. Yeah, which doesn't make sense, but quarks, whatever. Let's go for it.
Well, so that's the thing. So I think story-wise, the one thing people will kind of poke issues with is that the idea of time travel in this. They basically go against all the time travel theories that were postulated by movies like Back to the Future.
And they name like 20 time travel movies. I laughed at that. That was so funny.
But it is an
Hot Tub Time Machine, man. They done quoting the stupidest movie ever.
Yeah, well, it was. It seems kind of lazy from a narrative standpoint. Admittedly, just to be like, oh, we can mess with history and return to our present day. Because our timeline isn't affected, it creates another timeline.
Mm-hmm. But they brought up some really good points. Like at one point, Banner is talking with the Sorceress Supreme. I love that she was there in New York. He's talking with the Sorceress Supreme. He's like, "We'll just take it." And she's like, "No, this, and this will happen." He's like, "Well, it might not," And he's having this great conversation. Like I love that.
So did it feel lazy to you, or were you able to buy into it?
So I don't know if you know this, but actually I love time travel movies. I'm a huge fan of them. I don't know why. I hate the idea of time travel.
Okay.
So it's kind of a juxtaposition. I hate the idea of time travel. I hate what it does for ideologies and metaphysics, and I really don't enjoy it. But I enjoy time travel movies. A lot of the times it feels lazy, but for some reason I really enjoyed it in Endgame. Because it wasn't an easy time travel. It was time travel to do certain things, but it wasn't the time travel, kill Thanos, and then solve everything. It was like, we need to do specific things to even try. Like, it was time travel rife with true danger, not we're going to accidentally change the future danger. There we go.
Okay. Well, yeah, and what this allowed for us to do is revisit old MCU movies.
Yeah.
And which was really cool to see because...
you get new camera angles.
New camera angles, but also it's just...
I just like new camera angles.
Well, that's good. But you really get to... it's one of the benefits of something like the MCU that's been going on through so many stories that you can revisit them from a different point of view.
Yeah.
And you get to see characters we haven't seen in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And it was... this is where a lot of the cameos came from.
There was no Coulson, though. I was really sad about that. I was hoping to see Coulson.
Well, that the point they traveled to was after he died. So.
Yeah, I don't know.
He was in Captain Marvel.
Yeah, I know.
But so many of the film's cameos came from their revisiting old movies.
Mm-hmm.
So they went to the Avengers,
Yep.
Thor: The Dark World,
Mm-hmm.
and the first Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yep. So the Avengers I really enjoyed because there was a moment in the comics where Captain America joins Hydra, and everyone lost their minds. So at one point, they had a revisitation of the elevator scene, and you think it's going to be this big fight again, but Captain America knows how to beat them all now, but he just leans in and goes, "Hail Hydra," and then grabs the scepter, and it's absolutely hilarious.
So it's super clever because not only is it a reference to that comic book storyline, but it's also a reference to the scene from Winter Soldier. So
exactly,
it's that's some high quality writing right there.
Yeah, that was just beautiful little Easter egg, and
then that is America's ass.
Oh my gosh, that whole lot! We were laughing our asses off. But that was such a funny moment. Him fighting himself. Really, really good. There was another point of that moment, the Hail Hydra thing that I was trying to get to. I can't remember. But Loki's alive now, because
in that, this is if we spend too much time thinking about how the time travel works, it'll blow our heads up. But
yeah, possibly he's possibly alive.
Yeah, he's alive. We're not sure, or at least in some timeline.
Yeah.
The Ancient One from the Doctor Strange movie comes back.
Yep.
And you see her interacting with Bruce Banner,
which was I found really heartfelt. I really enjoyed that. And at first, I thought he was way more aggressive than he was going to be, but then I realized he doesn't know her technically.
No, yeah.
So
by the time he meets Doctor Strange, she's long dead.
Yeah, and I love the fact that she was there defending New York. There probably are some dead guys that they don't know how they were killed, and there was so much fighting going on. But yeah, she would be there defending the New York portal because it can't follow.
Yeah, and I really was surprised to see Robert Redford again, Alexander Pierce, the world security guy, because he's a big part of Winter Soldier.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go even farther back to the 70s. You've seen like an even younger Hank Pym and a young John Slattery.
And so they used Pym's voice and then they youngified his face, or a new actor?
And they youngified him.
Okay.
Same thing with Tony's dad.
Right, which makes sense.
With John Slattery, who played the older Howard Stark.
Yeah.
And they had this beautiful exchange about being fathers that was like...
my heart was just so, like, I was just like, this is great. Like, you know that his father did care for him, like, and tried to lay down the best that he could for him. And it, once again, just reinforced the joy that I had in Tony having found a family and my hope for his victory. Like,
And then just going back to Thor 2 to allow Thor to have like that kind of reunion with his mother.
That was absolutely heartfelt, and you know, she just understood. She didn't try to like figure everything out. She's just like, my son is here and needs me. And it was just so beautiful and caring.
And then in 2014 when they go to get the Soul Stone and the Power Stone, what did you think about the whole Nebula shared Wi-Fi thing?
That seemed cheap. That was the only part where I was just like, really? But then again, my fiance said, it was like, yeah, like she's more machine at this point, and she has this entire, like, I would think interior connection, but no, she has a constant connection to Thanos and everything. So if they're there and Thanos has been tracking her and changing her as much as he has, heck yeah. The way that it happened, I was like, okay, that's a bit weird. But the what that happened, like her being so easily tracked and identified, made a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it allowed for Thanos to kind of re-enter the story, because you're kind of like, okay, well, if Thanos is dead, then how are we supposed to still have him be a threat?
So it's the old Thanos then who like is like, well, I know about time travel now, and I'm going to come mess everything up.
Well, it's what I found interesting about that Thanos, like the 2014 Thanos, is that he's fully aware of like what ends up happening to him. He finds out that he'll end up being killed.
Yeah.
And he doesn't regret it. He's like, hey, I accomplished my mission.
He is dedicated to his mission through and through. Like,
to the point where, you know, at the beginning of the movie, he has a completed Infinity Gun. They could do anything, literally anything. And what does he do? He like
wishes the stones away so that no one can undo what he's done. Like,
and then he's totally happy with being killed. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And then the next Gamora, Black Widow, I thought that whole sequence where basically her and Hawkeye are basically like fighting over who should be sacrificed.
I was pretty sure that because they had emotionally invested us in Hawkeye's family, that Natasha was going to successfully sacrifice herself, so I wasn't too surprised. But I didn't know at one point. Like, when she shocked him, I thought that was it.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, yeah. And especially, like, it makes sense in the long run, the way that she basically presents herself 5 years later as basically, I have nothing else but the mission.
Yeah.
And sacrificing herself for it. So
it just makes so much sense, like the way that they wrote the characters. Like, this was foreshadowing in writing. Like, they wrote the characters a certain way and they behaved as written.
And it'll be really interesting now for when Black Widow shows up next, like when her solo movie, it will. I imagine that if
it's got to be before. Right?
Yeah, it has to be. I think it would be so cheap if they resurrect her at this point. But now I'm more interested to like see her kind of backstory. It's like, okay, how did she get to where we met her in Iron Man 2?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
So kudos to you for that.
So are we past 4 worlds now? What's the other place they visited?
Those were the 3 time periods.
Okay, cool.
So they get back to, you know, what is 2023 basically.
And then Thanos follows them.
They build the gauntlet. They snap the fingers.
Everyone comes back, but you don't really know what happens to that yet. And then my favorite moment ever happens.
What, Thanos blows up the Avengers compound?
Oh, that was actually pretty darn awesome. Oh, yeah, we are still going chronologically. Right.
So like, the third act of the movie is basically this extended final battle with Thanos.
But the beginning is Iron Man, Thor, and, you know, the ones who didn't get completely buried. Iron Man, Thor, and
Captain
America being ready to fight. And I was like, Thor brought back the hammer, so he's going to dual wield. Like, that's going to be amazing. And so, of course, like, dual wielding 2 awesome weapons, but he had all that fly. It was a really hard fight. Iron Man had some really cool new tech on his suit, so he obviously has kept building. And then Captain Rogers, I thought, was going to be batted down in a second. Then my favorite thing happened. Thor's down, you know, hammer starts flying, and I was like, it's taking a little while to get to him. That's a bit weird. Captain America wields the hammer, as was in the comics. Like, I was so happy. What I was hoping he would do, though, is like clash it against the shield.
He did that a bit.
A little bit, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I missed that. I'm gonna have to rewatch that. But like, wow, what a fight! Like enhanced Captain America fighting was
that was the moment that made the theater I was in gasped. Like, like it was like, oh,
like there were screams in the theater. Where
there were a lot of like beautiful fan service moments.
Mm-hmm.
Like just when you think that it's gonna not go well from you hear a little bit of Falcon on your left, which is a callback to the Winter Soldier.
Yep.
And
then,
then,
him using the wings as weapons was super cool.
But like the portals open up and everyone comes out.
Okay, the portals. Like as soon as like they defeat Captain Rogers and everyone else, I was just like, shoot. Like I'm assuming the 8 of them could take on a little bit, but I don't know how that they're gonna stop. And then when the portals open, I was like, oh, of course, everyone's back. Oh, you're gonna get it. It's like I was just waiting for them to beat him to the ground, like all of them at once, and then them take on the army.
And then the music swells, and you get him finally saying "Avengers Assemble," and I was just like, "Whoa!" I couldn't have been more happy.
Yeah, no, that was. Whew.
And Spider-Man's playing Keep Away, and then the instant kill comes back.
It was super super cool,
and it was. Yeah.
That was a great battle.
Yeah, like Cackles, who saw the movie for his bachelor party, said it reminded him of Lord of the Rings, but almost more epic.
Yep. Like there's just, you've been given more time for each of these characters that bringing them in and having this super cool fight was, I enjoyed the nod that they had with all the ladies on screen at one point during the explosion.
Yeah.
I was like, it seemed forced because obviously like why are they all in that section of the battle all at the same time, but still a fun nod.
Yeah, and like again, like females that I've watched on YouTube talk about the movie, like that moment kind of makes them tear up because they
that's great.
Like the acknowledgement, like there's that many female heroes in this universe, and yeah, it's a little contrived.
Pepper Potts in the iron suit was amazing.
Yeah, like to see them all on screen at the same time meant a lot to her, and I'm sure it meant a lot to other female fans. So I can't, as much as like I thought I was like, okay, that's a little too much, but I'm not gonna.
You know, it's obviously like a nice homage.
And we're like literally talking about everything that happens because it's like it's so
like we can't discuss it without just going through it and reliving it because that's how good this movie is. Like I think most of the movies we have discussions about them. Like